Awesome.
Brilliant. Well, over to you guys.
Great, thanks.
Please give a big warm welcome, DMLab.
That would be leave the chat.
Yeah, I was just going to minimize it, maybe. Yes, so I suppose it would be good to have the slides on the screen.
Okay.
Yes, great. Hi, everyone. Maybe we should start by introducing ourselves. I'm Maria Witek from the University of Birmingham. I'm a music researcher.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm a DJ and co-researcher on this paper.
Gemma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gemma. I'm a sound artist for the background in DJing, and I'm a fellow co-researcher on this paper.
Yeah, great. So we're going to be talking to you about this project about DJing and disability, which we've been working on for the last couple of years. This is a collaborative project with Drake Music and also with Native Instruments. So we've kind of been working together on developing the research questions and doing some of the exploration of this topic. It's also funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. Yeah. And I mean, I probably don't need to say much about the social model of disability. Probably most of you know, but we work under this understanding of disability as people being disabled by the barriers in their environments and kind of a lack of access to musical experiences, to musical practices, rather than any physical or mental impairments. And alongside that, we kind of think about not just what disability disables, but also what it can enable. And pass over to you.
Yeah, so the basis of the research and the way we involved everyone was participatory action research, which is essentially researching with the community and within the community instead of on people. So Gemma and I were both part of the project based on our lived experiences of being within the community. And yeah, it was working collaboratively, so we were also participants, and with other participants as well, to learn how the research was basically going to mold and evolve over time. So we were involved in setting the research questions, gathering and analysing the data, and sharing our findings with the rest of the community. So we did an open day at one point in Birmingham, and also sharing with Native Instruments and here today. And then also collectively then deciding how this research will be used for action. So yeah, for example, meeting with Native Instruments. Should I press next? Yeah. So we initially started off the research by getting together and considering how we were going to go forward. So we decided that video diaries and photo diaries would be a really good way of doing so. So we asked the participants, and including ourselves, to put together either a choice between photo or video or audio or text of video diaries, or diaries more broadly, on it could have been anything. It was basically open to interpretation of our participants' experiences within DJing. But we also structured it slightly with questions about their inspiration of moral models, entry routes in learning into DJing, how they might customize their practice, and any positive or negative experiences. But certainly it was open and optional throughout that whole time. So here are an example of excerpts from the diaries. So I suppose for audio describing, we've got on somebody with their hands on some record box DJs. We've got another participant who's captured themselves live DJing. We have a participant with, is that Frankie Knuckles?
That's Frankie Knuckles.
With
yes.
Frankie Knuckles. So that
Who
would
was
have been on
also
the job.
disabled, by the way, yes.
Yeah. And then somebody, well, we've got record box or tractor, some DJ software with the text saying, "I'm literally so proud of myself." And then we've got a other DJ, one of our participants, performing live in front of a crowd with their hands in the air. So this is another example, a written example. So it says, this is with an image that says, "I am a DJ, not a jukebox." And the quote says, "I find it difficult to read the expressions of other people when they come up and request music. 9 times out of 10, I manage to clear the room when indulging people in their requests, and it tends to disrupt the connection I'm building between myself as a DJ and the room I'm performing to. It also causes me to become confused, and sometimes I might find it so stressful that I cannot enjoy performing anymore." Hang on a moment. Yeah. So after that, we used the basis of all of the audio, the diaries that we used to structure semi-structured interviews. So we had a look at the diaries, and together, Gemma, Maria, and I collectively decided on what further questions we can ask more directly in our research interviews. And now I'm going to hand over to Gemma.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so we analysed their interviews on Zoom using a virtual whiteboard, and we organised the responses into themes and sub-themes. So I don't know if you can see some of these headings, but for example, we looked at hardware and then software separately. We looked at sort of neurodiverse issues and emotional responses to DJing, which disabled DJs might face. So it was quite detailed. So the main themes we want to focus on are in the mid-circle. So social interaction and expectation, learning to DJ, how we feel our feelings, empowerment and strength, and physical hardware, customization and design.
Thanks, Gemma. Yeah, so I suppose just to give a brief summary, so we started with these media diaries, maybe I'll just go back here before I start that. So we started with these media diaries just to kind of give disabled DJs the first word, and kept it quite broad. And so those media diaries were just really to give disabled DJs the opportunity to give us the first kind of impressions of what is important to them. And then the interviews, we used those media diaries to inform the interview questions that we then asked in the interviews. And we did this kind of thematic analysis, and then we came up with these themes based on that thematic analysis. And now we're just going to focus on these 4, just giving a couple of examples of quotes from the interviews, and then we'll talk a little bit around those quotes. We're going to be reading these quotes, but we'll read slowly, and the quotes will also be on screen, but just to kind of give you a sense or kind of a flavor of the kinds of experiences that disabled DJs have.
So the first topic of social interactions and expectations. So the heading says social interactions in clubs. And this is a quote from a participant. I want to dance on my own. I don't want anybody to come near me. I want to, physically, if I'm listening to a DJ on the dance floor, I want to dance and I want to respond because I'm enjoying the music. And that's what's making me feel good. I don't want to be dancing in a circle with people. I don't want somebody to come and drag me into the center. I can't do that. And so I get very like, I want to be in a corner, but I don't want anybody to come anywhere near me. But I'll go along with it if I feel like I have to. But I will literally inside be like, I absolutely hate this. Like, I can't think of anything worse. So feeling ashamed of unconventional practice. And a participant informed us. I went to a gig in Toronto in 2010 with another DJ, and the DJ was playing, and they were just playing background music. It was just cocktail hour. It wasn't a dance floor, but they were sitting down, and I remember thinking like, oh, that looks whack. Like, they shouldn't sit down. But now all I want to do is sit down when I DJ, because I'm disabled. So I think I have kind of like an internalized ableism or whatever. I just worry that the crowd will look at me and think I'm not trying or I don't care because I'm sitting down. Because they're used to seeing DJs standing up and doing this. It's what we expect from a DJ.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of context to this. So the first quote kind of gives us an understanding of what it's like to be a disabled DJ in a club. We talked both with, we didn't kind of specify a kind of disability in this project. We wanted anyone who identify as disabled to be to be invited to take part. But this is definitely something that we saw come out of DJs who are neurodivergent, being really excited to be part of dance music culture and be in a dance club, but having very specific experiences of sociality or like social interactions on a dance club. So being surrounded by a lot of people could be difficult, or the expectation of socializing in a club could be challenging. So people would want to be there, but there were aspects of the social interaction in clubs that was challenging or was a barrier, if you will. And with this one, it's really about sitting, isn't it? That we expect DJs to be standing and dancing, but actually sitting should be an acceptable way to present as a DJ.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. There were other aspects of this as well. Another thing was having an unconventional practice in the sense of having lots of different kinds of controllers. We have had one participant who likes to sing while they DJ, and while that isn't really expected from a DJ, it's really important to them to have that as part of their practice, but they would feel ashamed about having this unconventional practice. And so that expectation of a DJ being a particular thing and not this other thing was something that we also saw in this research. One thing that came out of this that we thought was quite interesting was that it was quite clear that a lot of disabled DJs feel an intense sense of pride and care for the dance floor. And so here's a quote that we think from one of the participants that reflects that. Sometimes you might struggle to read one person being neurodiverse, but I think feeling a room, being oversensitive to how a room is feeling, is something that's based out of our neurodiversity in a strong way. Because I think because I think we really care and we really want things to be right and feel the way it should. I feel like there's a good way for us to express ourselves within that environment that might be a bit more difficult for us in other ways. So this quote really reflects that like strong sense of emotional care that the DJ has for the dance floor. And I think this, interestingly or importantly, kind of counters that stereotype of a neurodiverse person not being emotionally kind of intelligent, right? Or not having that empathy. Like we think of autism, that there's a stereotype of autistic people having a lack of empathy. Our research really counters that stereotype by showing that neurodiverse and autistic DJs really, really care for the emotional well-being of the audience. And they do this through their obsession with the music. Another thing that came out of this was that being a DJ gave disabled people a kind of a safe access to dance music culture. So for the reasons that Caroline was saying before, with this kind of the social interactions in a dance club can be kind of overwhelming. Being a DJ, you kind of have a specific role, and also you can be confined behind the DJ booth. And that provides a kind of barrier to the dance floor that can be helpful. So here's a quote that reflected this from one of our participants. I would say that part of the reason why I actually started DJing is because I loved being out, and I loved the club, and I loved the energy, and I loved the music. But I didn't like being in the thick of it too much, because I used to worry about what I had to say to people, especially if I wasn't drinking. Whereas once I started DJing, some people would say, oh, you DJ because you want to be at the front. But I did it because there was like a safety barrier between me and the people, which is called the decks. And so I get to share this really fantastic environment and experience with people, but like in a little safety box. So the DJ booth kind of, in a way, separates the DJ from the dance music culture and crowd in a way, but it also gives them a really clear role in dance music that they feel comfortable with. Another thing that came out of this was that being a DJ kind of gave access to feeling free and feeling neurotypical, or feeling kind of respite from feeling othered and feeling disabled or being disabled. So one participant said, I feel like because I fidget a lot, or I need to be stimulated or something, like I'm always mildly uncomfortable. But then when I'm DJing, I feel at ease, like I'm comfortable, I'm free, my body feels like it's not constricted or limited. I can do that, and you're not going, why is she doing that weird arm movement? And like, I'm performing, bitch. Like, whatever. I feel like I'm always trying to shh myself. But when I'm performing, I can be weird and zany and my body feels free. So by being in a performative role in dance music culture, there was a kind of a freedom to not have to mask and not have to kind of feel different and feel othered. This kind of, there was a kind of respite from feeling different and feeling othered in that space. And this also was connected to some people telling us that they felt like the dance music culture kind of provided a socially acceptable outlet for stimming. So one person said that I think movement is part of it. Like my fingers are doing their own thing, my head, like it's almost like being moved by the music naturally. Yeah, like stimming, I guess. It's like that thing that you have to do. It's even harder to do, to not do it than doing it. So this is a DJ talking about their experience being in a club rather than DJing specifically. But when you're in a club and dancing, that feeling is actually quite similar to what it feels like to be stimming. It's that desire to move in a repetitive way. And so the context, the dance music context, is kind of a socially acceptable situation to be stimming. Everyone really is stimming in a dance club, not just neurodiverse people. Okay, Gemma, over to you.
Yeah, so then we looked at hardware customization and design, and specifically the appearance of controllers. So one participant said the lack of just being able to customize how it looked. It's black and red. I don't like looking at it like that. I do computer games and PlayStation and everything. Like I figure out when it's gritty, but it's almost like I would get problems with executive function looking at it like that. And another participant said, I think I can help with executive function when you reaching for controllers on text, especially if you have dexterity issues. It can reduce the cognitive load of reaching for the controller. So it's all about, making it a little bit more flexible and not just like the participants said just shout black and red, so it's about having more choice over different colours, which I thought was quite interesting. So, the next issue around hardware and customization and design was the physical robustness or things being portable. So another participant said, so what I think was important was to have hardware that was quite robust and would take a bit of a battering. When I was looking at what decks to get, I would look at, what decks are going to be able to take a bit of a battering because some are more delicate than others. So, I think this is quite a big issue for people with physical impairment or even neurodiverse impairment. So if you've got dyslexia or something like that, often hardware a little bit more robust is really important.
Thanks, Gemma. I think this is the last theme. So another thing that became quite clear is that there are some issues around kind of learning the terminology around DJing. But it wasn't really about learning the terminology. It's more about contextualizing that terminology rather than actually understanding what they mean. So here's one quote. What I found challenging when I was learning terminology was how do I apply it? The context of when I apply it. When do I get the tempo up in the mix? And the whole fact that there's cue headphones and then there's cue buttons and all of these things that are kind of broadly linked and also not. And another quote. What I found challenging was not learning, just kind of remembering techniques and terminology, what it all meant, So I think everyone kind of often understood what the terms would mean. So when you're like engaging with software or like learning how to work with the hardware, but actually understanding when to apply what function, how the different things fit together, that's what was difficult. So one of the things that we've been doing with Native Instruments is they're considering kind of making little contextualizing videos. So like when you're in the software or mostly in software, I think, when rather than taking you to a preference setting, you could have like a little thing that could take you to a little video that could kind of explain the context of that thing rather than a technical description of what it meant. because the technical description isn't really important. It's like, what does it do, and how do you use it? So that's the themes. I think we're going to just finish with a couple of conclusions. I think this is yours, Caroline.
Yes. Yeah. So, so I think we found that there were a number of barriers to accessing dance, music and culture as a DJ practice, certainly where it came to engaging in the venue, engaging in the crowds, but also sort of like in parallel with being able to have the space behind the booth and being in control of the atmosphere when you're performing. There was also some conclusions in aptitudes and perceptions about DJing and what that looks like, such as standing up or sitting down as a DJ, and how you engage with the crowd in particular, or how they engage with you. As I say, dance is not the only way to engage with dance music. You can sit, you can stand still, you don't have to bring in the crowd, you know. And then dance floor etiquette and socializing. There was also a big interest in terms of remembering artist names or terminology in the way that people sort of remember music, and not everybody has the lingo for the etiquette of chatting to people so much. Is basically, those social expectations sort of come in conjunction with it.
I think this is yours. Oh no, this is me. Okay. So in addition to that, we kind of learned that DJ can offer this kind of safe space to disabled DJs, giving them a kind of dedicated role in dance music culture that can be liberating. The DJ booth was described as a kind of safety box that separated the DJ from the crowd, and in that way allowing kind of emotional and social engagement through the music rather than through socializing necessarily. Of course, you know, socializing can be important for disabled DJs as well, but this was one thing that's especially neurodiverse DJs talked about. DJing can offer then a kind of opportunity to counter the stereotype of social dysfunction among disabled DJs, especially neurodivergent DJs. And we see this through this kind of great exhibit of care and skill in actually creating musical pleasure on the dance floor. So that's something that DJs are very proud of, disabled DJs are very proud of, that they're very good at. And finally, that it can offer this kind of respite from othering and a safe space for unmasking. Yes, and now I think it's Gemma. Yes.
Yeah. So in addition, in terms of customization, robust sets of instruments to accommodate their practice was a big issue, and adjusting other and parents both software and hardware to help executive functioning cognitive load in terms of terminology, less about specific terminology, more about information delivery and absorption, and also that the information, if it's contextualized, is better understood and absorbed.
And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was really, really, really interesting. I'm sure there's lots of questions in the room. We've got a little bit of time for questions, and we've got a roaming mic around. So if anyone has a question, please put your hand up. And Hugh at the back will.
Can you unmute?
Sure.
Hi. Oh, yeah, great. That's working. Really good talk. I'm sorry I missed the first part, and I'm looking forward to getting the beginning of it. My name is Julian. I am a DJ. I've been doing this since the early 90s, and I only got diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago. And everything you say really rings true. What I would add, though, is that there's a certain additional aspect to it. That, by the way, I'm also a neurotologist and specialist in neurodevelopment with ADHD and autism as well, and do research in the area. So it's about the scenes that develop as countercultures. There's a really strong link with neurodiversity in general. They're often spawned by neurodivergent individuals or people that feel excluded and marginalised. So actually what drives these, the true heads in any scene are often neurodivergent people. And what I've seen in over the years, because I've skipped across many different genres and scenes, because I get bored easily, and what you see is the same pattern time and time again, is that they are driven by these neurodivergent, open-minded people, say from the traveller community, say from sort of urban deprivation, and if you tap into that and to that passion of the music, and you have that passion for the music, that is what builds that community and drives it and provides that accessibility and that safe space. It's a really, really powerful thing. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be, when I got my medical degree, if it wasn't for the support from the people in the rave scene, I would have been in prison or I would be dead. That's statistically the reality of it all. So that's a really important thing I think we need to sort of take into account. I, in my day job, deal with mainly sort of deaf people and people at university. And one of the biggest problems I have at the moment is I'm seeing all these teenagers and I'm trying to give that message of empowerment to them, but they have no safe space. And so this is, I'm so interested in what you're talking to do, because what I've been trying to do is work out how we can build those safe spaces and use rave as rehab, because that is what it can be and powerful. Additionally, from the movement side, ADHD, there's high links with hypermobility and got the Tourette's, which I've actually got. And there's a physical component to that. So actually, with hypermobility, you get a little bit, your joints are lax for people that don't notice. So you need to move your body around to get that reference and calm yourself down. And with Tourette's is that, baseline activity that's kind of, and you just want to get loose to it. And that's what drives the dancing aspect to it. And music synchronizes with that. So it's a really powerful multi-sensory stimulation experience. And that's what's recognizing these countercultures have emerged as an arts form spontaneously over periods of time. Okay. I'll stop there because I will info dump for hours otherwise.
Can I say on this one? You've got some really interesting points there. Certainly, I can really resonate with the young people and outreach and using rave or music, electronic music, as a way of engaging young people, especially socially isolated young people. So I've been doing a lot of DJ teaching in pupil referral units. There's an organisation called Noise Academy, and they do a lot of work for DJ lessons in schools and pupil referral units in particular, which I found that a lot of kids will likely be undiagnosed neurodivergent or maybe struggle with engaging in society in a way that, is stereotypically seen as acceptable, but certainly it's far from the case. They're always so interested, and being able to empower them through their own creative art form is really a great thing to see.
Just for those of you that are unaware, this is like a really pressing social issue. So neurodiversity, it's estimated that 1 in 4 people within the prison population are undiagnosed ADHD or autism, and it's roughly the same within substance misuse services. And there's this horrific prison, school to prison pipeline, or homelessness that goes on. So, when you look at it from that point of view, from a societal perspective, it is a massive, massive thing that needs to be addressed, and we're only starting to become aware of it. So it is really important stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Another organisation is last night a DJ saved my life. They do a lot of stuff across the world, but they also do stuff within the UK. There's a great DJ called Amber D who's doing DJ workshops for kids in social care. It's definitely expanding, and there's a lot of really great artists who are involved in trying to bring that more to attention, that there's value in DJ lessons and using it as outreach. So yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? Yep, just over here. And while Hugh's getting the mic, are there any questions on Zoom as well, or comments? But if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments.
My friend and I were older DJs with learning disabilities, and we hardly get given the opportunity to zone in on our skills. Have you guys got any advice on what organisations, where to contact, and if the Drake Music organisation would also do any, not just workshops, but also give DJs who have got learning disabilities, perplexed disabilities as well, yeah, including autism, if they would give people who are older the same opportunity to learn how to use interfaces, to know how to, use CDJs and be taught how to mix. I mean, I love mixing. I was talking to Q, and now I've got some ideas in my head. I would love to perform.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for your question. I know of one organisation, they're London-based, called Bubble Club, and they... Oh, did they never get back to you? Oh, that's a real shame to hear. Well, I think that in that case, I mean, that's the one organisation I do know of, but I think there's definitely scope for more cross-generational engagement, especially. I think that there's always been an emphasis, especially around charities and organisations, about, younger generations, but I think that cross-generational engagement is really powerful and valuable and important. And I know that Drake are obviously involved in various projects, but certainly I think that's something that should be developed on. So I thank you for your question. In terms of actually developing and creating, sort of engaging more, I think that there is something to be said about maybe, I don't know, I feel like there's been, on a broad spectrum, I've met a lot of different DJs and disabled DJs who do want to actually be more involved in finding a community, whether that's online or in person. I think is somewhere that it should be developed, and perhaps maybe even a meetup at some point. I don't know how that could take shape, but I think that, yeah. Gemma, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I don't actually know any projects that offer opportunities for older or learning disabled DJs. Because obviously I'm an older DJ myself, so I can understand the question, because you do sometimes feel a bit left out once you get to a certain age. But maybe that's a project in the pipeline that Drake Music might want to think about applying for funding for,
Yeah, great. I mean, just to respond to that from Drake Music, this is really what DMLab's about. If you've got ideas for workshops you might like to see, we really welcome that. And if enough people do express interest in it, then we can look at doing it as part of what we're doing, without putting too much more work on my colleagues, of course. And obviously these things require funding, but we have, for example, last year we ran a couple of workshops on a Saturday, and if there is enough interest in this, in our feedback form, just please feedback, and then we could potentially look at doing something. I'd hopefully invite Maria and Gemma and Caroline along again. Maybe we could do a little workshop, perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, that's what this is about. So yeah, really welcome that feedback, and it seems like there is a lack of resource out there, especially in London. I think there probably are lots of places across the country, but yeah, we could certainly look at doing that. Out of interest, how many people are DJs in the room or interested in DJing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I think you've pulled quite a few DJs out of our community, so that's brilliant. It's brilliant to see. Yeah, this is a really, really interesting area. I used to DJ many years ago. I'm a big advocate of sit-down DJing. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, and actually in the old raves, DJs weren't at the center stage. They were hidden. They were hidden in the space, you know, so yeah, I think it's really, really fascinating work. Is there any more questions in the room? No, anything on Zoom? Oh, we've got a question right at the back.
Hello. Hello. I was wondering if, in terms of learning to DJ, with regards to the point you made about people finding it difficult to put to practice, could it be gamified in the same way that, like a game is? When you're learning to play a game, you start the level in a specific scenario with a specific end goal, which is to leave this room or to get out or to find the object that you need. So you put in this, you are put into a situation with a specific goal. And I was just, while you were explaining that, I was just thinking it could probably be applied to probably anything really, but to DJing and anything technological, because you might want to learn how to do X, and they can create a demo library of scenes, and like this specific scene is going to trigger this environment of music at this tempo, and you have to fix the problem, or you have to get out of the situation, or you have to do something that is expected of you. Just thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think, oh, this is on? Yeah. It is something that when we met with Native Instruments, it was something that came up in that discussion. I think gamification can be a really powerful way of learning. I would be curious about this context though, because it's like driving a dance floor is such a complex skill. I find it hard to imagine how you would learn that. I mean, maybe there are some aspects of DJing that you could kind of gamify, but the thing that really drives what DJing is doing is like kind of leading the dance floor, right? Like in an emotional and a social way. And that I think would be hard to gamify. I don't know what you think, Caroline.
When I've been teaching the Noise Academy curriculum, the way that they've actually set up the structure is sort of gamified. So certainly, well, I don't know, my experience with teaching the kids, they come in and they just want to know what all the buttons do, and then they just are very happy to get on with it, the same way you would show a kid how to use the controller in a fighting game. So from that, I don't know from an online aspect or like an individual learning aspect that might be something in terms of formatting that could be different, but certainly the way in which they've set it up with, you know, hot cues, being able to sort of alert yourself to when you will do certain aspects and movement in your mixing has been a way that they've done it, and sort of with the end goal sort of being that they'd have a 10-minute mix or something like that. But that obviously involves facilitation with a teacher there, so I'm not sure about independent. Yeah.
I think that concludes our first session. So once again, big thank you to Maria, Caroline and Gemma.
Thank you. I just realised that we forgot to audio describe ourselves.
Better late than never. Let's do it.
Okay, should I do it now? Yeah.
Why not?
I'm a white woman with glasses, wearing a black shirt. That's Maria, and my pronouns are she, they.
I'm Caroline, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm wearing a blue corduroy shirt and some baggy trousers, and I've got brown short hair.
My pronouns are she, her, and I've got purple-ish curly hair with glasses, and I'm wearing a blue t-shirt.
Brilliant. Well, thank you once again. I think you're going to stick around for 20 minutes or so. We've actually, for those in the room, we've got the Native Instruments tractor controller set up. Maybe you might want to have a little go, have a little try out if you haven't before, or maybe there's some people in the room that can show some skills, I think. But yeah, we're going to have a little break now for like 15 minutes. Yeah, and we'll come back for our second presentation then. Thank you all.